This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is James Campbell, the Managing Director of Botswana Diamonds. Thank you very much for your time, James. We're going to catch up on a couple of things that are going on in the company. But first of all, how are you? I know you've been out in the field drilling recently. How's it been going?
Good morning, Mark. It's lovely to have a chat with you and to give our investors an update on what's going on at Botswana Diamonds. Yes, I spent 2 weeks in the field on a drilling campaign at Thorny River, logging the chips, cutting lines through the bush, building roads, all those kind of good things. And last week we wrote up the preliminary results, and we're going to be talking about those today.
Yes, excellent. Well, let's start on Thorny River then, and the latest update. It's quite significant, isn't it? You found 52 metres of kimberlite with a pretty large intersection as well. So can you just explain what exactly it is that you found here?
Absolutely, Mark. The objective of this drilling exercise was to assess 4 very high priority geophysical targets, which we identified early in the year, as well as a target identified by a group called Subterrane. And the purpose behind this was to see whether any of these targets would develop into kimberlite blows. And if they did, we would add them to the kimberlite inventory, which we already have with the river and river extension blow, or we would condemn them. And that's like a slightly technical term of condemnation drilling, means they're out of the area. We don't need to worry about them again. So the results of the drilling program, which we concluded at the end of the week before last, is 2 of the geophysical targets demonstrated significant intersections, as you mentioned a moment ago, and those will be added into the kimberlite inventory. A third generated kimberlite intersections too, but it was too thin to really include in the inventory. The fourth had signs of kimberlite, and we're going to have to go back there and take it to have a look at it. And what I mean by signs of kimberlite is that it had kimberlitic indicators in the drill chips, and sadly the Subterrane target was negative.
Right. Okay. So what does all this mean then? I noticed a comment from the chairman, John Teeling, that we have finished exploration and now move towards mine development. So that's a significant step change, is it?
No, absolutely, Mark. If I kind of go back 5 years, we had a very large expanse of acreage in the general Thorny River area. We had portions of the farm Friskevakt, Hartebeersfontein and Doornrivier. We have concluded all the work on Doornrivier, and we've actually submitted that closure license back to the Department of Mineral and Resource and Energy. And the purpose behind this was to see what would we add to the kimberlite inventory of Thorny River, and which areas could we give back to the department so we don't actually continue further cost on those areas itself. So we had a large area. We've now focused into a smaller area, and we're now starting to look at the permitting process in terms of opening up a mining operation in the area. Okay. Now, the last thing, I wanted to add there too as well. What we were quite keen on doing is to ensure that when we give up an area, there is nothing potentially commercial on that area, and if we did find new kimberlite blows, which we did, we could add it into the mine permitting process now, rather than the complication of doing it at a later date.
Okay, so there is no more exploration to be done then? It's now going into mining, getting a mining permit, and effectively mining for diamonds?
Absolutely, Mark. There is one of those targets that I do want to do a bit more follow-up work on. And why? It's because it's got a very good geophysical anomaly. It's got a very good heavy mineral anomaly. And we discovered kimberlitic indicators in the drill chip. So I want to resolve that. Either condemn it, walk away, or it gets included in the inventory. So it's sufficiently interesting to do that. But that's a relatively small amount of work. And the main focus will be absolutely on getting the permitting process correct in terms of commercial production on Thorny River.
Okay, so when you talk about getting it in the inventory, is this similar to like a resource? Is it the same thing with diamonds? You get a mineral resource estimate, like a JORC compliant?
In diamonds, absolutely. We have written a competent persons report on Thorny River, but it stopped short of declaring an inferred resource. We recovered something like 450 carats from our bulk sampling, along with microdiamonds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what the decision that we've taken is that we will commence work on the basis of the exploration information that we have to date. So because we're not going to be borrowing money against this, there is no requirement, like we would have to do at Gargu, for example, to go to an indicated resource and thus get a bankable feasibility study. And due to the nature of the kimberlite itself, we basically follow the strike of the kimberlite. And that's what the plan will be.
Okay, excellent. Well, that sounds like excellent progress. Do you have any idea how long the mining permitting process generally would take?
Mark, it's a very good question. In South Africa, you've got two kinds of permit. You've got a mining permit, as the name suggests. This is a permit which is a very neat permit for small-scale miners. It covers an area of 5 hectares, is for 2 years, renewable for another 1+1+1, so essentially 5 years. And you can only have one of these 5-hectare mining permits on your property. And this requires fairly limited amount of paperwork to get the work done, and it doesn't take very long to get one. We have one on Marsfontein, for example, on the gravels and dumps on Marsfontein, and I think it took about between 6 and 9 months to get. On the other side, you have a mining license, which is very common to most other jurisdictions around the world, which is a very thick piece of paper, a huge amount of environmental and social studies, can cover any area that you desire, and is generally for 20 years. So we're meeting with various consultants actually starting tomorrow morning as to which of these two best suits our requirements, and maybe we start with a mining permit and grade up to a mining license. So these are the kind of things that we'll look at before we kind of implement which of these two directions.
Excellent. Okay, so moving towards production, that's significant. And am I right in saying that was it Marsfontein had payback in 2 days or something? Is that the similar thing, maybe?
Well, I don't quite think it's that, but Marsfontein had a payback of 3.5 days.
Okay, 3.5.
And that's chiefly because of the very high-grade alluvial or colluvial diamonds which sat on top of the pipes. The grades there were running at 1,500 plus carats per 100 tons before getting into the kimberlite, which had an average grade of about 80 carats per 100 tons. So it was actually almost a unique circumstance where with the kimberlite being eroded over time, the diamonds just didn't travel. They just remained where they were and became more and more and more concentrated. So the gravels were very, very rich. And yes, we still continue to look for the same kind of geomorphological environment because the kimberlites are very consistent in grade and diamond value from Marsfontein through to Thorny River, through to the nearby Klipspringer mine too as well.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, hopefully you can find something similar, but in the meantime, it's clearly economically viable and you're getting cash flow once the mining permit. Well, you have to build a mine presumably as well and get it into production.
Absolutely. Now, there's no difference. A mine is a mine is a mine. You have earth-moving kit, which you need to bring on board. You have a processing plant. And the good thing about a diamond processing plant is that it's fairly low in terms of energy consumption and no chemicals are used. So from an environmental perspective, it's a lot more friendly than many other kind of mining techniques. Yes, so we've been down this road before. In our group, not necessarily with Botswana Diamonds, but our board and myself have built many mines between us.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, James. We've covered that project very well, the Thorny River project, looking very good. So looking forward to keeping tabs on the development there of the mining plan that hopefully, you have no problems with, and we can catch up on that in due course. So let's talk now about Maibwe and the recent conditional acquisition. So what can you tell us about this? What's the latest on this project?
Absolutely, Mark. Botswana Diamonds has got a twin strategic focus. One is on Thorny River, which we've just discussed now, and the second is in the Kalahari of Botswana. And our two, before I leap into Maibwe, the two other ventures that I'd like to touch on, because it gives context to Maibwe too as well, is Sunland Minerals, which has got significant acreage in the Kalahari itself, and Sikaka Diamonds. Sikaka we acquired from Petra 2 years ago, and that has got the KX36 deposit, which has a pre-feasibility study attached to it. And Maibwe is on the western edge of the Kalahari. It was a joint venture between BCL Limited, our company, which is partnered with a company called Siseko, and a local company called Future Minerals. Sadly, BCL has been in liquidation for several years, and we've made several offers to the liquidator to buy out BCL's share in Maibwe, because we view it as being highly prospective. It's got several kimberlites on the property, one of which has got extraordinary micro diamond results attached to it. And now at last, we've been able to kind of break the logjam of this corporate morass, for want of a better word, with very good negotiations with the liquidators, and for them to accept our conditional acquisition of their share. So the end result will be 50% Siseko, where we have a majority stake, and 50% Future Minerals. And why it's conditional is, like in many mining jurisdictions, you have to apply for ministerial approval when you acquire a mining asset or a mining company. And we're going through the regulatory process for that right now.
Okay, excellent. And how's that looking? Are you feeling confident about that process?
Oh no, absolutely, Mark. If I kind of refresh shareholders of what similar processes we've done before, 2 years ago when we acquired Sikaka Diamonds from Petra, we undertook the same Section 23 process, and very swift. Botswana's a great place to work. So you fill in the forms correctly, you have a good track record, the minister grants you approval. And then last year, in the conditional acquisition of Gagu, and that required a Section 50 application, or bigger application, because it's a mine, of course. We were also granted that quite swiftly by the government in Botswana. So we don't see any major hiccups with the regulatory process in Botswana. And the liquidators' lawyers have already got the bit between the teeth in terms of getting this done as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's just finish now talking a little bit about the diamond market and generally what's going on. What can you give us an update? You must have your ear to the ground on the market, of course. So what's the latest looking like in regards to the diamond market, diamond prices, demand, that kind of thing?
Mark, it's a very good question. What you typically see at this time of year, around July and August, is a bit of a lull in diamond pricing because of the Northern Hemisphere summer holidays. People are packing their bags and going to the coast and not typically spending money on jewelry. And that's exactly what's kind of happened. There's been a bit of a quiet period in the diamond market. But notwithstanding that, if one reads the trade press, the sales have been better during this quiet period compared to the quiet periods last year and the year before that. And that's good. However, of course, there is a word of caution at the moment. We're going into an inflationary environment throughout the world, or so this is what the economists say. And this is notwithstanding superb kind of employment data coming out of the United States. So it's a bit of an odd position to be in. But what we're seeing coming out of the States as well, and this is normally a bellwether market for all other diamond stocks, is that diamond pricing, particularly in your medium and larger stone goods, has held up very well. And this is, for your higher net income people. Whereas in the lower price goods, where people are a bit more fearful of the fears around inflation, diamond prices have drifted a little bit. But all is pointing to still a very good second half of the year, notwithstanding any black swan event which might come to pass. And, who knows in today's world if and when that will actually happen.
Indeed. Okay, well, thank you very much, James, for giving us that update. So just to summarise then, you're expecting the final acquisition of Maibwe. I make sure I say that correctly, Maibwe. You're waiting for the finalisation of that acquisition on the joint venture. And also, I guess the market can expect to see an update on the mining plans for Thorny River. Is that right?
Those will be the next two key pieces of news. Absolutely, Mark. And then there'll be other news supporting it in other ventures which are active at the moment. But those will be the two key pieces, very much so.
Okay. Well, James Campbell, the Managing Director of Botswana Diamonds, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much indeed for having me, Mark, and all the best.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.